Thank you. Have we had any apologies for absence?
Chair, councillors Lagova and Whiteman are joining the meeting virtually, so they're able to take part in the discussion but are not permitted to vote.
Great, thank you. Councillors online, if you could just indicate with the little hand up icon on the software, I'll try and look out for it. If you don't have your camera on, and call you. Great, thank you. I can see it all thumbs up there, Sally. Minutes of previous meeting. Would anybody like to propose that we accept the minutes, or does anybody have any corrections or comments on the minutes of the previous meeting?
I'll propose we accept them as an accurate record of the last meeting.
Would anybody like to second?
Motion here.
I was here at the last meeting.
So,
Well, I was here, so I suppose I can second it.
well,
Would everybody who was here just like to indicate that they're happy with the minutes? Yeah, I think we'll take that as happy. Declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations of interest relevant to this meeting which they need to disclose? No. Okay. There are no chair's announcements, and I don't believe there's any last minute urgent business, which brings us on to the substantive item for the evening. We do have a contribution from Harriet Mogridge, who I believe has joined us tonight. If you'd please like to take your spot at the chair just there, you'll have 3 minutes to speak whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So Radley Parish Council strenuously objects to Kennington Parish Council's proposal, and the majority of residents who responded also object. We were not consulted, and when we did speak to Kennington Parish Council, no justification was given that explained to us really why it was considered necessary, or why it might be better for the Radley residents affected. Radley Parish Council is currently progressing the construction of a community building on the lawns, which is the area that might have gone into Kennington. And we spent a lot of time and effort and still money on this. And we actually own the piece of land that the community building will go on. So that would present an enormous problem if Kennington Parish Council took over that area. Our parish has made a huge effort to include the new housing in Radley. We've had a welcome pack, which the parish council has funded, and people from the church have put it together, taken it around to all the houses. Radley News, which is our monthly magazine, we had a free copy of that given out to all the houses at Christmas to make sure that everyone feels part of the community and aware of what's going on. We have councillor from the Lawns in Radley Parish Council, and we also have a councillor from one of the mobile homes that's affected. We have been actively involved with Radley Largewood and the issues on the lawns. Sugworth Lane, it seems as though that wasn't very well thought out what would come to Sugworth Lane, because some houses in the proposal would be in one parish and some would be in the other. The current boundary along the northern edge of Radley Largewood and Sandford Lane makes complete historical sense. There's no need to change it. So I urge the committee to accept the officer's recommendation not to progress the proposal. And just one more thing, I wonder if this may not be something you can do anything about, but I would request that in future applicants might have to give more of a reason for why they wanted to have a boundary change, or there might have to be a response from both councils involved. I don't know if that's something you can.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
I think it's certainly something that we can take on board. So thank you very much for coming to speak this evening. I know that everybody will have listened very closely to your contribution. We'll consider what you've said over the course of the meeting, especially when we discuss the issue of Radley and Kennington. So thank you very much.
Very much.
So what I would suggest we do now is go straight into the question of Radley and Kennington. If I remember correctly, that's referred to as CGRB in the documents. I think that will be helpful to do it in that order, just because we've just heard from Ms. Moggridge, and while that's fresh in our mind, we can go straight into that item. Just briefly, however, I thought we might just ask our officer from Democratic Services just to give us a very brief summary and overview of what the council has done since the last time this committee met, a brief summary of the consultation that's taken place just before we proceed any further.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So, members will have before them a covering report which sets the scene where we are currently at. So the first stage of consultation was really just to gain views on the three matters that covered this evening. Attached to that covering report is a very large document that summarises the consultation responses. You also have all the comments redacted, people's names being redacted, but you have all the comments that were submitted as part of that review. In respect to Kennington and Radley review, you've also got some additional comments that are attached to that schedule. The purpose of this evening's meeting is to agree draft proposals, which will then go out for a further period of consultation. So that will run through the summer, with this committee meeting sometime in September to agree what referred to as final proposals but really which is the final decision. So there'll be another opportunity to for members of the public and relevant organisations, parish councils, etc., to respond on draft proposals. In respect of CGRB, which is the matter currently looking at, Kennington and Radley, for the request of this committee, we actually wrote to all the impacted properties. So I'd say we're ahead of the game, really, in terms of responses from members of the public and impacted parish councils. We could just summarise, well, the speaker summarised it quite well, that Kennington Parish Council requested that this council look at transferring land north of Sutworth Lane into Kennington Parish Council. As I said, we as council wrote to all affected properties. The responses, I think it's fair to say, overwhelmingly object to the proposal. They cite really that it's clear from the responses that those who have responded clearly identify Radley Parish Council in terms of their community. So the identities and interests, which is one of the factors within the terms of reference, clearly suggest we should retain status quo. And also it clearly shows there's effective, convenient local representation, local government led with Radley Parish Council. So in terms of the recommendation, officers are recommending that no changes made to the parish boundary and that the review is not taken further forward. So we wouldn't issue any draft proposals. Would suggest that with the information you have for that initial consultation response, that this committee ceases the review, progressing any further.
Thank you very much. I just would very quickly like to clarify one comment made by our speaker, Ms. Moggridge, about not having been consulted. Just for the sake of the meeting, I think it's worth clarifying that the parish was consulted following the publication of the terms of reference in March, weren't they?
They were, Chair, and I also had contact with representatives of Radley Parish Council before the last meeting, trying to provide them reassurance that they would have the opportunity, as they have during this initial stage we have a review.
Just for the sake of avoidance of doubt, I think that was worth mentioning just briefly. I think that comment was probably more in relation to the lead up to that initial part of the process. But again, just worth clearing up, I think. Okay, so we can now jump into the discussion on the first item, which will be Kennington and Radley Parish Councils. The proposal was that the land north of Sudworth Lane be subsumed into Kennington Parish Council, which is currently part of Radley Parish Council. We've just heard a summary from our officer, and I know that we've all read the papers with the consultation responses as well. What we need to do is just discuss the information given in the papers, consider the recommendation made by our officers, which is that the review does not proceed any further, and whether or not that is a recommendation that we want to endorse, or whether we as a committee might have a different view. So with that, I'll open up to the floor and ask if anybody would like to make a first contribution. Councillor Thompson.
So thank you so much, and thank you for coming to speak to us here today. I think it's pretty overwhelming, right? Like, I mean, the recommendation is that we shouldn't go any further. It's based on a huge amount of consultation, and I just want to say like how great it is to see so many people contributing to this. So I do completely agree with the recommendation. I think it's, from my opinion, it's fairly obvious what should happen now. I would just like to get clarity though, Stephen, if you don't mind, just how unusual is it in processes like this for us not to proceed to the next stage? So does this happen very often? Like, is it or, I mean, I just want to get a sense of how unusual it is to go through the first stage and then not go on to the next stage based on the initial feedback.
I think because this committee asked us to write to residents that allowed to gain a huge amount of information. If we hadn't done that, it may have been different now, because it may have been that not so many residents would have been aware of what was going on. But it's not unusual. I refer to another council. So on South Oxford on Tuesday night, there were 4 reviews that the committee agreed not to take further at this stage. So it's not unusual. I think in terms of resources, it's when you get the evidence we've got before us, it's unlikely to change if we came up with a draft proposal, but that's consultation. We just save a lot of officer time and money for that process.
Thank you. Okay, perfect.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Does anybody else have anything that they want to contribute? I think I saw Councillor Lagoba first, and then Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, just again, when we discussed and made decision last time, just during the previous meeting regarding this consultation, again, the main point was made that we need to ask residents and, just base our decisions actually on their on their opinions, on their views. And again, the collected results show there is really strong views, like, just over 80%, like 82% of respondents, just objected to this change. So it's pretty obvious that, just this recommendation was provided, which I support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lagoba. Councillor Pam.
Yeah, I think echoing the point that Max made about, it's great seeing so many comments. I enjoyed reading through 223 of them, or whatever the number was. And I think sort of looking at the things that we can consider in the community governance review, things like community identity. I think it's quite clear that people do consider themselves part of Radley, and I think it's great that the parish council have been doing so much outreach work. You mentioned the parish, you mentioned the church, and I think that's really good. I think it's also worth, a lot of the comments did raise concerns which I suppose we wouldn't look at in a CGR, the increase, that increase within the parish precept, or the impact of local government reviews. I guess it's just important saying that I don't think we should move forward on this. I think we should move forward on this because of public opinion, community identity, rather than some other things that people might be concerned about. I suppose my other question is, I'm new to this committee, looking forward to getting involved in everything. So you say at the last meeting that the decision was taken to write to all affected households in Bradley. So was that specific decision taken because we were expecting this to be a slightly more controversial application, maybe? Because I know that in the Kingston bag freeze application, obviously it is a topic, but it's the same. It's the same situation. Taking in a new housing estate, but with rather less feedback. I just want to sort of ask what the rationale was given for maybe Brighton's residents in this case, but maybe not in other cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it was a suggestion from this committee who would normally, as part of the review, if there were a proposal to transfer properties from one parish to another, we would write to them. I think it was clear this is quite contentious locally and from local board members, and therefore the suggestion was made we write at an early stage. And reference already been made to the fact that there was no conversation from Kennington to Bradley Parish Council. But we'll come on to that.
Of course, yeah, I don't. Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else like to add anything?
I suppose just yes, I'm new to this because I wasn't at the last meeting, but it's very clear to me that the officer's recommendations are perfectly valid, and it's this writing that it even got this far, I think. But yes, I totally agree with the officer.
Okay. Well, I would say that I'm in complete agreement with all the remarks made by the councillors so far. I think the overwhelming objections to the proposals seen in the consultation response just illustrate that undertaking that consultation at this stage was very much worth it, because it will prevent, if it doesn't go ahead, further work being done when there is clearly such a strong feeling that it should not happen. I think it's safe to say that the committee's view is that we do not proceed with the CGR for Kennington and Radley. So I think we can make that the committee's conclusion on that item. Anybody has any last second? Great, okay. With that, I think we can consider that one closed and the committee's judgment made that CGR should not proceed. If we move on to, let's do what's called CGR-A in the documents. And that one was Kingston and Bagviews with Southmore. And the suggestion there was that the new housing estate to the east of Kingston Bagviews essentially be moved into Kingston Bagviews Council and not remain as it would with the current boundaries with the Fifield and Tudney Parish Council. And I think our recommendation from the officers on that one was that that review should proceed. Okay, so would anybody like to kick us off on the subject of Kingston, Bagviews and Tudney and Fifield? I would call Councillor Batson first and then Councillor Thompson.
I think again the consultation and the fact that all three parish councils are to support this proposal means that we should go forward with the second consultation. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, clearly. I think I'd just like to, again, just get clarity on sort of the next stage of this. Would that involve writing to a larger number of people? What specifically is involved in the next stage? I know it's set out in the paper, but I just want to get clarity in my mind. So the first stage is sort of draft consultation, and then the second stage is more letters sent out, or is it what is the second stage on that?
In effect, the second stage will really mirror the first stage in this particular review, because there are no, as alluded to, there are no properties valuable which has been granted. Part of the reasons to undertake community governance review and guidance is where there's a housing development which straddles or is close to of order, which it is in this case. We would consider that where the development is, it would look more to Southmore, the Highfield company. Our consultation team will advertise it the same way with our engagement team, so it'll be via social media. Parishes would be written to separately, but there is there's no impacted houses to actually write to at this stage.
Sure, I think, and again, forgive me if I'm being stupid here, but I just want to really say this because I mean, in terms of like saving officers' time and resources, we have all the parishes that agree or seem to have indicated they agree with this already. Is it a legal necessity that we go through each stage of the process, and that's just how it has to be done? And we can't skip the next stage. Say, well, we've had representation, and we don't need to go to.
No, so we have the power to stop the review at any time, right, which is what we agreed to do last time, but we can't skip. It does. I can see where it comes from.
Yeah,
it looks a bit strange at two stage, but we do have to go out with the draft proposal and then agree a final.
Thank you, which is I fully support the recommendation.
Anybody else with anything that they would like to add? I think our remote attendees, I can't see any hands going up. Okay. Well, on the subject of Kingston Badfuse with Southmore and Tudley and Highfield, I think the committee's view has been made clear, unless anybody has any last second objections. But I think the committee's view is that review should proceed on the basis of the strong positive response to the consultation which has been carried out since March. And I think therefore we can make that the committee's decision on that recommendation that the CGR should proceed. Yeah. We've got one more to consider. This is CGRC, Appleton with Eton Parish Council and Besley Parish Meeting. Again, the recommendation from our officers was that this one should proceed. And again, the respondents were on the whole in support of the merging of the two parish councils, which was the suggestion made. So again, I'll open up the floor to any contributions on the topic of the CGR on the merger of Appleton and Besley parish councils.
Yes, this is interesting. I've seen one like this before. And I think it's a very good way forward because a parish meeting is a once a year thing, which doesn't involve many people, whereas getting more involved in the parish council, I think, means that all the residents of Besserborough will get better democratic representation in the future. So I fully support the recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Backstone, and for what it's worth, I would say that I agree with that. Would anybody else like to jump in with anything at all? So,
yeah, I think it makes sense. I think both powers seem to be in favour. Just wondering, is it taking into consideration having even numbers of councillors versus odd numbers of councillors? I know in some cases prefer having an odd number in case of sort of votes or something. Is this something that we'd take into consideration, or otherwise I think 8 is a sensible number. And then my second question, I don't think I it might be answered in the papers, but would it be warded, or would it be one parish council all elected by all of the areas?
It's not. You'll be elected to the parish, so it'd be best to have one parish councillor, and then Appleton is 7, so it's slightly different.
Okay.
So the whole idea is that they retain the identity of historical parishes. So you abolish the current parish council then create a new parish council over the top of the two existing parishes.
Thank you.
Well, I would say that I'm in agreement with the recommendation in the officer's report that our CGR should proceed to its next stage. And my feeling from our committee members is that they are in agreement with that, unless anybody would like to jump in otherwise.
So I am, but I just have one quick thing, which is that just to go back to Councillor Pell's point about number of councillors. I mean, it is interesting how the approximate number of councillors adds up to 899, and it says above up to 907 councillors. So I just wanted, but again, not necessarily saying I'm to 8, and I think split votes are unpleasant, but they can happen. But I'm just wondering why that is.
There's officers who took the view that current Somerleyton has 7 councillors. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously that's for this committee. If you think we should consult on a lower number, or it could be something that informed constituencies could raise, but we thought we'd leave current representation of the existing parish as is, and the new part of the group would have 1.
Sure. I mean, I don't feel incredibly strongly about that. I was just, and that seems like a perfectly reasonable rationale for me. I was just wondering because it's just interesting that it adds up to, unless I've got my maths wrong, it adds up to 899. And so I just thought that was an interesting thing. But I guess it's very close to 900. There are 7 with Appleton already. And I mean, I guess as part of the consultation, will people be asked about the number of councillors they wish to represent them, or would that be something that isn't normally asked?
I think what we'll do with this one is word the consultation, because what this committee is going out to consultation on is the name of the new person. So we would say, do you agree with the name? Or is there another name? I don't know, but there may be some local, historical name is better. And also then would be asking specifically, do you agree with the number of those parish councillors? Yeah.
Cool. Obvious.
It's an interesting point. Thank you for raising it. Okay. Well, I think we're safe in saying that the committee's view is that CGR should proceed to its next stage. And that is the committee's decision and recommendation on that item. Okay. I did just want to ask a broad question as would concern both the CGRs which will proceed. At our previous meeting, officers were quite happy that this process could be wrapped up by the winter. I just wanted to check if that is still the view of the officers and staff, particularly considering that there will be, I'm sure, concerns relating to local government reform, which will also take up some officer time over the second half of this year.
I feel like I'd have to make decisions because I won't be in. So.
Yes, we've factored in running the consultation over the summer, giving us time to analyse that and come back hopefully to this committee in September. Once a date can be arranged, and then that will be the final decision that's made, and then there'll be paperwork and liaison the legal team. So we have factored that in, and we're comfortable that we can do.
Well, I find that quite reassuring, and I hope the rest of the committee does as well. That really is everything that we need to cover. So unless anybody has any last questions, I think with that we can wrap up and close this meeting at the time of 7:30.
Larry, could you stop the broadcast, please?